Welcome to the Leadspace Leadership Podcast by Kinetic Leadership Consulting. We are honored to have Dr. George Walker with us to share his profound insights on the concepts of mirrors, lenses, and windows in leadership development. As a theoretical physicist by training, Dr. Walker's illustrious career spans several decades as a distinguished figure in the realm of research, doctoral education, and leadership development. In today's episode, Dr. Walker shares powerful insights for self-reflection, perspective-taking, and understanding the dynamic interplay between leaders and their environments.
Thank you so much for being with me today, Dr. Walker. I want to share with the Leadspace Leadership audience, with our current Leadspace leaders and future leaders, your comments from the formation of scholars or your stories that you share about mirrors, lenses, and windows. And as a brief introduction, I know your reputation, everybody knows your reputation at the University of Charleston, but let me provide a brief introduction. Please help me welcome Dr. George E. Walker, our senior mentor at the University of Charleston School of Leadership and the senior scholar and director for the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, responsible for the research and publishing of The Formation of Scholars, Rethinking Doctoral Education for the 21st Century. This book issues a call to action for administrators, faculty, and students to ensure that the United States doctoral education continues to be the envy of the world. And thank you so much, Dr. Walker, for your work in leading the team of which the Doctorate of Executive Leadership with the University of Charleston is based upon. So what I wanted to do, Dr. Walker, if you don't mind, I'd just like for you to share your perspective about mirrors, lenses, and windows.
Okay, I'd be happy to, and thank you for the opportunity. At the Carnegie Foundation, this particular idea of mirrors and windows and lenses is something that's been helpful in thinking about the development of a variety of their programs. The basic idea, and we'll come back to this, is that the mirror is something you look in, and it helps you see yourself. The windows, that's a two-way window, allows you to share who you are and what you're doing with others outside the room. And similarly, you can see what they're doing. So it allows you to share what you're doing with other people and them to share with you. And finally, the lens lets you focus in on those particular areas that you may think deserve further study because you haven't really figured out exactly where you are in those or what they are. So it's kind of the research wing that helps you evolve after you know what others are doing and what you're up to. But I'd like to take each one of those and talk about them in just a little bit. So first, and this is of course a metaphor. The idea of what you're doing can be your personality, your style, your program. It can be any kind of a thing that involves a human endeavor. So it goes beyond a particular individual or a particular program in terms of its applicability in terms of mirrors and windows and lenses. Let's start with mirrors. So the idea is that you look in a mirror. Now, let me remind us, without being too obvious, that if you're looking in a mirror, you better have the light on in the room, or you're not even going to be able to see the mirror. So it's not just enough to have a mirror, there has to be light. And light is a metaphor for understanding or ideas or insightfulness. Many times we look, but we don't see. And so when we look in the mirror, it's important what we see. Now, when we look in the mirror, we look with our own eyes, our own background, and what we see may be different than someone else who's looking in that same mirror and looking at us. And that's important because as far as I know, none of us has it all together. And it's important that there's someone there or some group there that can also say, well, you're looking healthy, but you only have one leg, or your hair is combed, but you have egg on your face, or boy, you don't look very happy. So different people looking at that image of us will see different things. Similarly, when we're looking in the mirror and looking at ourselves as leaders or scholars, and that's a little more intellectual, we will see the things that we are trained to see. When we look, we see what we expect to see or what we want to see. We go look through rose-colored glasses, or someone
Mm-hmm.
could say tinted glasses, or glasses that transmit certain frequencies. So even if we're looking in a mirror, and even if we're trying our best, and even if there's light on in the room, there needs to be other observers who also can give us insight. So one of the first things when we're looking at, first we need to look in the mirror and see what we see there. But we also need to have uh, constructive friends, constructive other observers that help us with that. Now, in addition to looking in a mirror, you may want to look through a window. Again, if there's two rooms, one room is what one group is doing, another room is what the other group is doing. If the light is on in one room and not in the other room, pretty soon you're going to draw the drapes. I mean, if you can't see anything,
Mm-hmm.
when you look into
You
that,
pull the blinds down.
you pull the blind. You don't want somebody just peeping in from the outside, looking into your home when you can't see outside.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also not a useful thing if you're really trying, as we are in education and leadership, trying to communicate with each other. I mean, we really want to know what's going on with each of us, so we learn from each other. So it's important to have that idea of light and being able to transmit things. Now, it's really important also that we understand that not all windows are alike, right? I mean, there are certain windows that only transfer certain, again, frequencies. So you have to be careful that when you're looking through the window, it really is a transparent window. The window itself could be dirty. And it wouldn't be that anybody, you'd say, all those other people seem like they have dirty clothes on. Well, it's just the window that's dirty. So you have to be sure that the thing that you think is transparent really is. And again, that same group of critical friends is important whether you're looking in the mirror or whether you're looking at the window. And I like to think of this as a building where there are windows in all the rooms to all the rooms.
Mm.
It's a multifaceted thing where you're sharing information with each other. Now, the most interesting one from my point of view is the lens. Now, lens is an interesting thing. When you have a lens, it's like a microscope, let's say, where you're trying to magnify. They have special light they use. It's not, you have more than the light that's in the room. You have to have special lighting so that you can see what you're looking at on this slide or on these little things. So there you need even more light. The real question with regard to the lens is having the judgment and insight to decide which little thing you want to look at. You see, I spent my time as a physicist, and one of the most important things that a physicist can do is not solve problems. I mean, that's crucial, right?
Mm.
But the more important is which problems to try to solve. What questions you have about the universe is even more important than being able to find answers to those questions. Because some questions you may not be able to answer, but just the fact that you ask it broadens your mind and your perspective in ways that if you hadn't asked that question, even if you can't find a solution, would be missing. So of the three, the thing that's most important for a mature leader is the lens. Now, you turn that lens on yourself, your own program, you look at other things, but it's the research and scholarship that moves you ahead in ways that you wouldn't have otherwise done. And as I say, it's important that you ask the questions, that you turn the lens onto things, even if you can't really quite interpret what's down there at any time, just thinking about it. Now, in many fields, we have what's called the inverse problem. So, for example, scientists might, shoot a beam of particles, of protons or something, at a target. So they have these accelerators where they make all these particles hit a target. And then those particles hit the target. Some of them don't get out of the target. They scatter into various angles, and they get a set of output from hitting the target. And from that, you work backwards from what particles get out, how much they're scattered. You work backwards to try to figure out what about the target? What forces are at play in the target? What sort of interactions, what's in there? That's true in everything we do. That basic idea, if you have pains in your back, then you go to the doctor. Now, what you tell the doctor when you say my back hurts here or there, you're telling him what particles got out and where they scattered. And the doctor is supposed to figure out from that, by working backwards, solving the inverse problems, what's the problem with your back?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And that's a way to think about everything in life.
Mm.
We're trying to discover things. We might have a problem at work. There might be a problem with our leadership. All those kind of things. Those are symptoms. And we need to work backwards in order to find out what's really going on. And that's what's in the lens. That's the thing you're looking at. Because the lens is scattered light that comes back to you and is the symptoms of what's going on down there in those areas that you don't know as much about as you want to.
And Dr. Walker, if I could pull on that a little bit more as far as that thread and somewhat do a read back, I'm kind of thinking, who's your light? Who is in the mirror with you? And it really hit me as you explained the mirror in the beginning, Dr. Walker, is that two people can look at you in the mirror and see two completely different things. That's amazing. And as you continue to talk about the windows, especially with the light, and the way you had shared it with the students, if you walked into a room and there wasn't light, you would turn the light on, and then if it was dark out, as you explained, you would pull the shade unless there was light there, and then you would peer through, and then you could start, that back and forth. So that really resonates with me a lot, and I'm sure it will for, everybody on Leadspace Leadership, because where are you spending your time and energy? That's what kinetic leadership's all about. Where are you spending your time and putting your time and energy in motion to lead? And that is very, very beautiful. I appreciate you sharing that, Dr. Walker. So who's your light? Go find your light. And we're talking about the people. You've got them within your organization. Those conversations sometimes that we have as leaders in our mind is probably the only reason why you haven't reached out to those people who are your light, for your mirrors and your lenses and your windows.
Yeah. Yes. Very good. Well, in the great religions and philosophies of humankind, light often plays an incredible metaphor for things. I mean, in the beginning of the Bible, God created light. And light is a metaphor often for understanding. But light can also be the thing that leads to understanding.
Yes, sir.
And so I think, when we are enlightened, that's where we learn things from other people or by reading and things like that. So the important thing, though, is to recognize that no person is an island, right? No one exists alone. And it's not just that we need each other, and so we ought to treat each other as cohort and friends. It's that we need each other in order to make progress, in order to understand ourselves. We learn often from interacting with each other a lot about ourselves. If we're only programmed for that. So I think that this simple metaphor of the mirrors and the windows and the lenses is a sort of a deep way of thinking about how we should go through life. We need all of those, and we need to not do it alone.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. I greatly appreciate that. And I think one of my participants, you're reminding me of one of his quotes from one of the themes is that there's no complex problem in the world today that there's not a co-production of outcomes that's required. We can't do this alone. We need each other. And I greatly appreciate you, Dr. Walker. God bless. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
It has been an honor to have Dr. Walker on the Leadspace Leadership Podcast, and we appreciate his time and energy to help us reflect on our mirrors, lenses, and windows of our leadership. Thanks for listening to the Leadspace Leadership Podcast, and start learning how to put your energy in motion to lead with Kinetic Leadership Consulting.